Tim's American Beauty was made by Robust Tools, America's premier lathe manufacturer. Quality hardened tool rests and live centers too. Robust. Built to turn wood. Enjoyed for a lifetime.
Thompson Lathe Tools. Welcome to a new level of professional wood-turning tools. Made by a woodturner for woodturners. Sometimes good fortune shines your way, and I had a buddy who gave me a bunch of clock faces. He got these from Penn State Industries, and they're really neat because these are kits that are made for wood turning and woodworkers. And let me show you right here. Whoop! Popped the face out right here. So the kit's like this, and it doesn't cost much. It's all plastic, and it takes a little battery back there. And so you take this, and it basically inserts into the wood like so. If I can get it in there. There you go. And it is now upside down. That's close. There we go. Anyway, but that's our project today. And as you can see, we're using some different types of wood. We're going to be using cocobolo to make the body, and then we're going to be using ebony to make two little feet on the end, and also this cool little addition that I came up with. It's called the clock face popper. You push that, and the face comes out. I thought that would be handy because we're going to inset this, and it's going to be kind of hard to pull it out with your fingers. The other thing is, Brian, behind the camera, came up with another idea to help me out, and he wanted to take this one step further, and he's right, because anybody can make a clock that looks like this. He said, let's make it look like an old-fashioned alarm clock. Well, ta-da, we've got fake bells up there, and that was quite a challenge because trying to find a wood that would complement the cocobolo and not battle with it was tough. And what I wound up doing was we're actually going to use black palm here. This is from a palm tree, so it makes it look kind of like leopard prints there or something. So it's a whole different look that we haven't seen before, and a wood that we haven't used before, and it does present some challenges, but it's a fun thing to learn to use. Well, the first thing we want to do is go to the drill press. Now the first thing I want to do is drill a hole through here all the way through. This is a 1/4 inch bit. So I made an X from point to point, so it helps me find the center. This is also a brad point bit. If you can see a tiny little tip on there, so it helps me reach down there, center it, and makes a little good entry. Also, you can see I have this clamped on here, so this wood won't spin. When you're drilling through something this thick, sometimes the bit grabs and wants to spin it, and if you're holding that by your hands, you might wind up with some busted knuckles. Also, the reason we're drilling the hole is because we're going to be using a worm screw to hold this on the lathe. Now, one easy tip, I keep forgetting what size this is supposed to be, but if I drill a 1/4 inch hole now, I will have just the threads grabbing. So what you do is you take a bit, put it in front of it, and if you can see just threads being exposed on the sides, you know you have the right size bit. This one's a little small, that's why it didn't work quite right. But anyway, let's power this up, and then I'm going to drill a hole. Okay, I have the worm screw mounted in the chuck now, and you have jaws on here because it gives you more of a flat space to rest against when you put this up here. Also, see how this is only going in, not even halfway? We're going to be recessing the clock in here, so make sure that you don't have too thin of a blank of wood, or the screw will be too deep that way and you can't hollow enough for the clock without hitting the worm screw. And see, I'm going to thread this on right here, and those teeth bite in there beautifully. This is a piece of cocobolo I've actually had laying on the shelf for about 10 years. Amazing, huh? So I dug it out just for you guys for this project. Now I'm going to lock the headstock down. That'll help me a little bit because I can turn the wood to finish this up. You keep turning this until you cannot turn it anymore. You might think you're there, but give it one more turn. There we go, and that's nice and solid. Unlock the headstock, move the tool rest up here, make sure nothing is hitting, and lock it down. So the first step we want to do is round this out. And I'm going to take my 1/2 inch swept back bowl gouge here, turn this on, step out of the way in case anything goes flying. Looks good. Now, if you're new to turning, you might want to put a face mask on because there are edges here, and if they come chipping off, you take too big a cut, it could whack you in the face. If you know what you're doing, you still probably could wear a face mask. But what I'm doing is I just anchor myself into the ground here. So I've got my feet where I want them, I've got the tool handle into my waist, I've got the tool right there, and when I start touching the wood, I look up at the profile up on top and see how big a cut I'm taking. You can take a pretty big cut in the beginning because you're only touching the tips of the wood. But as you get closer, you want to take less and less because you're turning more wood, so there's more torque, more pressure on the bowl gouge. And I want to be careful here. I don't want to waste too much wood because my clock face is about 2 3/4 inches in diameter. And this is a 4-inch square piece of wood. So I want to have enough to go around the clock to make a nice look. Let me double check. That's still bouncing, so I know I'm not flat yet. Now once I get this rounded out, we're going to hollow out for the clock. Feels good. Now I have my Jacob's chuck with a Forstner bit in here because I have to drill a hole for, oops, I dropped my instructions, for the clock. And the neat thing is these clocks come with instructions, and this one says that you need to get a Forstner bit that's 2 3/8 of an inch to drill a hole wide enough for this to go into. I don't have one, and I didn't want to go out and buy one because they're expensive, so I'm using a 2-inch drill right now. We'll drill the 2-inch hole, and then we'll widen it out by hand using tools. And I do know I want to go 3/4 of an inch deep. Usually I put a piece of tape on here, but the cool thing is I was checking this out, and right here at the base where it goes from silver to black on my Forstner bit, it's 3/4 of an inch from the tip. So that's my measuring gauge. I'm going to slow this down. Cocobolo is a hard wood. It's beautiful wood too. I really love working with it. And there we go, starting to make our cut. Sometimes the drill bit will spin just a little bit because it's actually kind of tightening down inside of the Jacob's chuck. See where I am here? Just make sure you don't go too deep again because you have a worm screw in there. That would be the bad thing. So I'm going to move this out of the way, and I'll be a very smart man, and I'm going to go ahead and take this out of the tailstock because I don't want to run my elbow into the Forstner bit. That would hurt a lot. So the next thing I want to do is I want to clean this face up just very quickly, and I'm going to use an EasyWood Tool carbide tip scraper. And here's one. It's got a little radius on it, and right at center level. And the reason I want to clean this up is because I've got to now transfer the dimensions, that 2 3/8 onto the wood. Well, I need a nice, flat, smooth surface to do that. And Cocobolo is a rosewood, has lots of oil in it, very hard wood, but it also scrapes incredibly well. So that's why I like using a tool like that on there. Now it's not perfect yet, but it's a lot smoother. So I've gone ahead and got that diameter on my calipers of the clock. So we're going to touch one end and make a mark. Oh, nailed it. You see how that's matching up right there. So I just need to widen it that much, and then we will be able to start seeing if the clock fits. So this is one of those little things you keep doing it, check it, do it, do it, do it, check it, do it, do it, check it. Hopefully it won't take too long, because it won't, actually, to tell you the truth, because the way they built the clock, they built in some safety or leeway for you. So I'm just going to be bold, and I'm going to go right to the mark. Normally you'd sneak up on that, check 3 or 4 times. I'm not going to this time, and I'll show you why. Open this up. See if our clock base fits in there. Yes, it does. We're there. And why was I so positive or confident that was going to fit is because see these wings right here. These are adjustable. So if you make the hole way too big, you can push them out like that. Make it really tight, they pinch in. It's the springs that hold this in there. So now I want to go ahead and deepen this out all the way to the bottom. And then I'm going to show you a trick because we want to actually inset this piece of the clock, or the whole clock actually, down into that bevel right there so it gives it an even more flush look. have been working on this a little bit more. I took this face down about 1/8 of an inch because we want to put a bead up here on the corner here in a second. And this recess I'm cutting is for the outer edge of the clock so I can sink it in there a little deeper, like I said, to make it look a little better. I'm also using it's a square tip scraper. Get the mess off of here so you can see it. It's a square tip scraper, but it has a slight radius on it. So I find that a lot easier to control when I'm doing scraping on something like this. If it was straight across, the whole face of the scraper would want to engage and it'd be a little more grabby. So I'm going to come up here like so. And it's got a little tiny rounded edge, and if I ever want to get super crisp on my edge, all I do is grab a skew and bring it in and just use that point to really crisp up that line. Now there's going to be a little trick here I'm going to show you. Now let me make sure the fit is there. I might regret this. I might not be able to get this out once it goes in. There we go. See how that insets and it doesn't stick out so far? There we go. Hey, I got it back out. Okay, cool. I want to pretty this up, and I also want to prepare for the fact that I need to hold this in a chuck to turn the back. So I'm going to take my skew right now, sit, and I'm going to come in on the 2 3/8 inch hole I have here and come right to the edge, and I'm going to go in and I'm making a dovetail there about 3/16 of an inch long. That's what the jaws will expand into. But on the line of pretty, I'm going to take one of my favorite little tools, and it's this little detailer tool by Easywood. I'm going to come on the bottom and just make 3 marks because I want a surprise in there. When somebody takes the clock out to change the batteries, they're going to go, ooh, the inside looks just as nice as the outside. I like that. So I don't even have to sand the inside. This scrapes so well, that just looks really nice. Next thing we're going to do, we're going to start working on the bead on the outside edge of the clock. Now you can see on the clock that we've made, the decorative bead is like so. So it's raised and it makes a nice edge. So that's what I want to do here. And you can use bowl gouge, you can use a spindle gouge, you can use anything you want, but I'm going to use the detail tool again because this scrapes so well. And I make just light contact with it. So it's easy to sneak up on a bead doing this and just work my way around it. And this is in bowl blank configuration, so my grain is running this way, so I want to come uphill to make this edge. Come back over here into the shadows. I should have moved my light a little better. Whoops. Yeah, there we go. I like something like this because it's flexible and you can move it around really fast rather than having something that's completely stationary. There we go. Now see, you can take a bit too much if you're not careful. But there we go. I've made a nice little bead. Just gonna drag this edge just a tick more. One last cut, famous words. There we go. So now the next bit, I'm gonna sand this thing. And since this is Cocobolo, you can sand to an extreme grit because this stuff is almost like turning with glass. And before I put my mask on and everything, I'll go ahead and show you what I'm talking about. Because sanding is like watching paint dry, right? So I'm gonna go ahead and use my Abranet, which is my normal stuff, and that goes to 400 grit there. Then I'm gonna go all the way up to 12,000 grit with micro mesh, and it's a fabric-backed sanding pad, but it has diamond grit in it, and this will last forever. It looks ugly, but all you have to do is wash it by hand, and you can use it forever. But the thing about it is, it puts this quality of a finish on the wood. Look at how glossy that is. That is most smooth. It only has wax on here. This is the way the wood looks like when you're done sanding it. So that's really neat. So anyway, that takes a little while, so I'm gonna get through that, and then we're gonna finish up the back of the clock. I hope this works. That worm screw is holding on really tight. Ah! I did get torque. That's what I wanted. Now if I can just get that off. Now I've got the blank reversed. I put my jaws on, and expanded into that tenon or recess I made inside. And you can see it's all sanded smoothly. All I'm doing right now is just cleaning up the back using this radius scraper. And I'm creating a slight curve to go to the edge here. And I just want to round this a little bit. And once I have this rounded, I'm going to start sanding again to 12,000 grit and blend into where it's already sanded. That way, it's easier to do it that way than trying to do it all at once. But anyway, once I'm done with that, we're going to start working with some ebony.
Tim's American Beauty was made by Robust Tools, America's premier lathe manufacturer. Quality hardened tool rests and live centers too. Robust. Built to turn wood. Enjoyed for a lifetime.
Thompson Lathe Tools. Welcome to a new level of professional wood turning tools. Made by a woodturner for woodturners.